Artsakh, and I'm the current president of Artsakh Development Group. ADG was founded 2 years ago, and its aim is to promote awareness in Artsakh and the region, and to aid in the region's development. Since its inception, ADG has done a number of things. We've given many lectures to high school and university students, and the goal in that is to promote awareness and have students be inspired to start doing their own research on the area and to continue on to possibly travel to the region and do research papers. We believe education is extremely important in promoting awareness. We also had, in October of last year, a very successful conference where a number of panelists presented on various topics, including the culture of Artsakh, history, politics, as well as the economy, business, and investment. We received a lot of remarks and interest in investment in Artsakh. Mr. Al-Baghdasarian, who's also presenting today, was a panelist for that conference, and hence the idea for this panel was born. Today's panel presentation is on investing in Artsakh and Armenia, resources and opportunities. Our very experienced panel of experts will discuss this topic and answer any questions that you may have. Today's event is sponsored by Armenian Group, and we thank them for doing that. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Anush Hosepian. She is the Public Relations Manager for Armenian Group, to say a few words.
Thank you, Karim. Thank you, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to this wonderful event. Thank you for being here on this Sunday morning. And welcome to Investing in Armenia and Artsakh conference organized by Artsakh Development Group with the support of Armenian. Armenian Group is very pleased to have joined forces with Artsakh Development Group in order to share with you the resources and the opportunities that are in the region in Armenia and Artsakh. And we're here to share with you what these resources are and how we can help you not only to make a difference, but also to make money in Armenia. And we have a beautiful panel here today, and these are top people in the field with a lot of expertise, and we have people that have invested in Armenia and have already implemented successful projects there. And so you will have a chance to address any issues, any questions or concerns that you do have about the investment project in Armenia. And allow me to briefly introduce what Armenia is and why are we here in Los Angeles. Armenian Group is a group of companies, a financial advisory group based in Armenia. And we have about $500 million in assets. We have branches across Armenia and also in Artsakh. And the mission for Armenian Group now is to reach out to our diaspora Armenians worldwide in order to provide them with an institutional approach for doing business in Armenia and to share with them what these investment opportunities can be. And why are we here in Los Angeles? For obvious reasons. There is a very huge Armenian diaspora, Armenian population here, and just we're here to tell you what these resources and opportunities are, and let's leave that to the experts, and without further ado, let's go to the conference. Okay? Thank you, Colleen.
Today's moderator is Mr. Vahe Yakubian. ADG is very honored and appreciative to have him moderating here today. Mr. Yakubian is an attorney, an entrepreneur, and an investor in Armenia and Artsakh. He's done great work in the region for many decades, not to age him. But some examples of his work include his representation of the U.S. State Department in the acquisition of land for the construction of its embassy in Armenia, his representation of the Ministry of Transport and Communications in the issuance of a second license to provide mobile telephone services in Armenia, his representation of the Ministry of Energy in the privatization of the electricity distribution network of Armenia, and his representation of the Department of Civil Aviation in the privatization of the management of the international airport operations. He also helped the government of Armenia with the financing package for the construction of the new airport terminal in Yerevan. He currently provides consultancy services to one of the largest banks in Armenia and is currently involved in the real estate development sector with several 100,000 square meters under development. Those are just a few of his many accomplishments, and he's also able, I'm sure, to answer your questions during the Q&A. At this time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Yakubian to introduce the panelists and get the presentation started. Thank you.
morning, and I know it's an effort to get here at 10:30 in the morning on Sunday. That shows that you're really interested in the subject matter, and today you will not be disappointed. I had plans to be in the East Coast this weekend, and when Sevag asked me if I would moderate the panel, I looked at the panel and I said yes, because sharing this table with the individuals sitting next to me is really an honor, because they stand for everything I have looked for in Armenia during my participation in its economic development during the last decade and a half. I will present Ale a little bit later after the break, because he will be speaking after the break. I will introduce to you the gentlemen sitting on my left, Andrew Gerchan and David Sarkisian of Armenia Group. Before getting to their introduction, I would like to say a couple of words about Armenia itself and those who have created and developed Armenia to what it is today. Because you also must hear about that from someone who's not a member of Armenia. Armenia is a group, as I was telling Ara Khanja a few minutes ago, is a group that started providing services, professional services, to investors and businesses, foreign and local, years and years ago in Armenia. They were one of the first, and we have a lot of consultants, very able consultants in Armenia, lawyers, accountants, financial analysts. But what this group did was institutionalize the consultancy services, something which is very, very important in Armenia. We talk about corruption in Armenia, we talk about lack of good practices in Armenia. The way to avoid all of these things is to be able to develop institutions that can circumvent such shortcuts and provide potential investors the services that we are used to in the West, where you have a one-stop shop, you go and meet young professionals who will hold your hand and guide you in the right direction so that you do not face all the problems that in the future you would complain about. And I'm really proud of witnessing the growth of this organization and what it represents today in Armenia. Andrew Gerchan is the CEO of the Armenia Group, and I want to read both of their CVs. Actually, it's not a CV, it's a summary of their CV, because it really says quite a bit. Armenia Group CEO Andrei Megerdichan stands in the roots of investment banking establishment in Armenia. He has more than 18 years of experience in investment and management advisory services. Andrew Megerdichan is the founder and managing director of Armenia. He serves on the board of a number of private and public organizations and is a member of the Business Support Council in Armenia, led by Armenia's Prime Minister. With a degree in international economic relations, Andrew Gerchan has furthered his education at the Department of Economics of Colorado State University and the Business School of Kingston University in London. David Sarkisian is the director of Armenia's legal practice and partner at the firm. He has more than 13 years of experience in the legal practice, specialized in corporate, securities, banking, and civil law. With his legal team of 13 lawyers, David Sarkisian provides comprehensive legal support needed for successfully establishing, structuring, and managing a business overseas through the highest quality of representation, mitigating the risk of running a business in Armenia, and securing high return on investments. He has a Master's of Arts in Political Science and International Relations from AUA, the American University of Armenia, and an LLM cum laude, a Master of Laws in International Law from Notre Dame Law School. Thank you for coming to California. I'm used to seeing you in Armenia all the time, and it's refreshing to see you here. Hopefully we'll see you a lot more. I will get to Ale, India, after the break.
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for all of you being here, for an introduction on ID. What actually I planned to discuss and share with you was our specific experience in doing business in Armenia according to best practices, consistent to principles and standards that people used in the West in Armenia, being successful and profitable despite problems that the country and business environment has, and sharing this experience and success we have in Armenia and in Artsakh with you, in a way probably inspiring some of you to initiate if you have plans, ideas, projects or prospects related with Armenia. As Vahe said, we started actually back in 1998. And our business the start was $100,000 equity investments with together with two of my partners, being diaspora just like you. One from based in Moscow, Ruben Vardanya, who is of course legendary guy, known in investment banking circles now across the globe, and the other one from Boston, Massachusetts, Lou Barafea, who is a venture capitalist, and I'm sure many of you know him as well. We started with $100,000 back in '98. We had three, including me, people, and we started in an apartment we rented on Burbank Avenue, if you know the city in Yerevan. Currently, we have almost 500 employees. We have more than $500 million in assets and about $100 million in equity. We have started with a mission of an advisory firm focused in investment advisory, investment banking services, consulting, strategic business. Currently we're a full-fledged house, having legal practice, tax, accounting, management advisory team, asset management, wealth management, property development, of course banking. We have second largest bank currently in Armenia with, as I said, $500+ million in assets. As I said, just a group of companies specialized now in the areas I mentioned. All of them are legally incorporated different companies with practices and yet enjoying the synergy of being one group, having, of course, one infrastructure for many of our services. It's in a way, it's a one-stop shop for many of our clients. Not only diaspora, by the way, we are in one or another way serving almost all large FDIs in the country and projects related with multinational corporations. So the mission that we started was really to develop a world-class practice in Armenia through developing best people and adhering to standards and principles and values that we have, each of us in different parts of the world, being successful businessmen in different companies in different countries. And that what really matters. If you are consistent in what you do, if you're professional, if you're following the concept, you will definitely succeed. As I said, despite of many problems that I assume any country on the post-Soviet area has so far. And I think through following the concepts and through following models, you are, as a change agent, catalyzing changes around you. In this particular case, changes in Armenia in many ways. I've briefly notified on who my board members are and of course a couple of other investment bankers from Troika Dialect, which is currently the largest investment bank in Russia. There are MDs in different directions in Troika. Most of them are ethnic Armenians, so we enjoy, a lot of devotion and commitment, not only based on professional commitment, but also they enjoy really being part of something in Armenia. So, as Vahe mentioned, our team, most of our team is Western educated. They're all relatively, young, and we have a very unique and true partnership concept, which is yet another exception more for Armenia. It's really a true partnership with stock option rights, with clear, motivation scheme of how and what people should do and can do to be engaged, in the company and in the partnership of the company. So this is a timeline. We bought a bank which is the oldest financial institution in Armenia. We bought a bank in 2007, and you see it on the slide next. But this was a bank which was a branch of a Caucasus trade bank. It is actually a Russian Tsar Empire period bank. For 100 years, this was a bank during Soviet times. It was renamed as a Communal Bank, Stroybank, Nestorbank, Army-based bank. So it was always a bank in the same building, on the same square, with the same, our ambience that this really entity had. And although it was simply a license that, at the time we bought it, it was a very small bank of only, as I said, 9 million in capital, 30 people working. It was really important starting point for us. So in parallel to this historic timeline, we started in '98 as Amir CGC Advisory Company, in 2001 as Amir Asset Management Company. In 2007, we acquired the small bank, Armenian Bank, and then we, started to form around our main businesses, synergetic businesses like private equity fund. We have equity investments in the country, property development company, and shortly after we aggressively started to develop also through inorganic growth. A couple of investments that we had. We acquired another local bank in 2010, Cascade Bank, by the way, which was an investment of another diaspora Armenian, Mr. Kafezjan, and we are proud to really do business with him, and he's an honorable member of our board up until now, and we definitely will follow and align our plans in Armenia, also with Mr. Kafezjan and his initiatives in Armenia. So in 2011, last year, we formed, incorporated already a US presence, because the concept and idea that we have is to focus on pan-Armenian world, engaging Armenian potential outside of Armenia. Armenian market is small, and for a large organization like we, it is already obvious that, to capitalize on what we have, we should definitely grow outside of Armenia. Last year we had almost close to finalize a large deal in Georgia. We're trying to acquire HSBC Georgia. Unfortunately, they opted to liquidate versus sell. But this is just to share with you what is overall, idea and concept. We should focus on both regionally and nationally on the countries and markets where there is an large Armenian community, having links and businesses and relations with homeland. Just to go quickly through, we have so-called reputation of a pioneer and innovator. Almost everything that we do in Armenia is really something new for the Armenian market. The Cascade Bank acquisition was the first fully market-based acquisition of one bank by the another bank in Armenia, both being valid and legitimate in the market, because before that it was mostly liquidations and takeovers as a result of different businesses popping up. This was a truly case of a operating businesses merger and takeover, and it was really an interesting experience we have developed into a case study. And now we are pursuing several transactions both in Armenia and in Georgia based on this experience that we have gained through going through such a deal. A couple of photos and slides that you see when we had an honor of hosting President of our country, Chairman of the Central Bank, many of the government officials last year during the opening ceremony of our company here in California. Unfortunately, I was not present because of my health problems. And a couple of aspects why and what we do differently. It starts with philosophy and approach that we have. We are not sparing resources and efforts in investing in people, investing in IT infrastructure, following latest developments in quality, risk management, in client relations management. Behind each of these statements, there are serious investments, both of time and resources, what makes us different from most of the organizations in Armenia. Just to, without pitching you what we sell usually on the market, this is slides of different services and advisory, different products and innovative news. This is of course an acknowledgement of our success by Financial Times in 2010, by Euromoney in 2011, a couple of other partners that we have, IFC, DEG, Commerzbank. We're proud to be in each of these areas and directions really a champion from, by the way, in some of the aspects, not only from Armenia, but from the region. This is just, let's say, main fundraising that we have done in borrowings, more than $200 million. This is, of course, 2011 annual figures. You can see we enjoy partnership and loyalty from many international financial institutions, and we have also historic, by the way, B2B clean unsecured borrowing from a German Commerzbank. It was the first time over the last 20 years of independent Armenia that the German bank directly lended to a bank with an unsecured loan in Armenia. And of course, we also have a very serious corporate social responsibility and standing. We are patronating orphanage in Armenia. We are patronating leukemia center, hematological center in Armenia. We're trying to bring in everything we do the best from the world to Armenia. We are sponsoring several world-class music events in Armenia. George Benson, El Gero, Joe Cocker, many others. Every year we are organizing a large music event. This kind of a tradition to bring these world-class values to Armenia. And of course, just briefly to show you the dynamics, you can see it's really self-explanatory. Times growth in everything that we do, and it's always above average of the market. This is dynamics of our asset growth. This is dynamics of our lending and customer advances. You can see the weight also in the pie chart of top 5 banks. This is a very important slide we were discussing with some of you before start. The quality of our growth. This is very important. You see the red line is an NPL, non-performing loans for the market, and you see the green line, which is us, Armenian Bank. And just because of us, by the way, the average is so low. But in general, so that you have probably a clue, is that from 4 to 7%, this is by and large in Europe and States. So we have less than 0.5%. So you see that truly it's not only about money to pump in and to grow aggressively. It's also about how you do the business, how sustainable and quality the model is. Of course, dynamics of our liabilities and deposits. You see, we enjoy loyalty of our customers. By the way, during the last 2 years, also a lot from diaspora for many reasons. This is dynamics of our total capital. This is AMD denominated. That is why you have in 2009, because of the AMD fluctuation, ups and downs. Net profit, this is only bank, of course. In the group, we have 15 million. Imagine when we started back in '98, we will have 15 million net profit. This was really even beyond our dreams and expectations. And currently, the run rate that we have for the first quarter is almost a double of what we have in 2011. So this is more or less it. A couple of rankings so that you see. We are number 2 by assets. Number 1 is the Crédit Agricole, so cooperative agricultural development focus bank, which is not in corporate and retail as we are. So in terms of full-fledged bank, we are number 1. The same goes with lending. You see liabilities, deposits. We are number 3. Total capital, and net profit. These are unaudited figures because of the difference in practice. After audit, a couple of our peers above us are, fortunately or unfortunately, below us. So an NPL, of course, you can see that having the largest corporate lending portfolio in the country, we are top 3, and these 2 banks above us are like times smaller than we are. A couple of notes on overall Armenian economy. You know that Armenian economy succeeded to be relatively smooth in these last turbulences that the world goes through. You can feel it and you can see it through, of course, we had drastic drop because of the construction sector collapse 2 years ago. But all in all, we are catching up now, more or less 5 to 6% growth. Of course, in absolute terms, this is still funny figures, but in relative terms, we are in the right direction. You see inflation at the beginning of the year was double-digit, first during the last 20 years, and government announced they will target this as a serious challenge, and they succeeded almost, cutting it twice. You see it's back again with, trade balance, with remittances, and of course it's interesting to experience that because of these turbulences, the structure of GDP is much more healthier now, because construction sector is now down, and we have industry and agriculture back again with their growth potential. And you see in the structure, it is except the trade, which is the largest sector, the rest is more or less balanced, with the annual growth rates in agriculture and industry almost 14–15%. Major infrastructure is there, of course. we should not pretend that there are no problems in Armenia. They are. We should also acknowledge that there is a positive dynamics, both public governance, tax administration, customs administration. Things are definitely changing. Country realized, especially after Georgian so-called success story, what Georgia did in a very short time frame, and we started to lose regional competitive advantages. So country now refocuses on this, and over the last 2 years we are going in the indices of how to do business in UN, World Bank, and most of the IDOs indices, including also World Competitiveness Report, which is done by World Economic Forum. So things are definitely changing, and this infrastructure, which is there to support foreign investments, is probably one of these sites. This is about the banks and ROE. This is also a very important slide. You could see that return on equity, there are businesses you can do in Armenia with return on equity of more than 15%, with relatively high quality of businesses and concepts, and it is still a world-class based infrastructure. This is acknowledged by many of our partners from Europe and the United States. By the way, our strategy is now, we are every year we're undergoing with rating assignment, and we are aiming at IPO in mid to long-term perspective, of course, further to capital market recoveries, which will be yet another pioneering flag, because we hope to be a first truly Western IPO from the Armenian economy. You see also average on the market, which is the dynamics of NPLs is now positive. Things are under control, although average 4% is probably among the best in Europe, Eastern Europe, and post-Soviet countries. So this is shortly about who we are, and as I said, I mean, the idea is to share with the story we have, doing a successful and profitable business in Armenia and Artsakh, doing it in a right way, with clear vision and understanding, and following these principles of integrity, transparency, being open with our clients, with our staff, and reaching results that you see on my screen. So the overall idea is not to sell Armenia or Armenia product, but to sell our story. That anything, if you're doing consistently, and if you're really trying to, I mean, you can never forget about your parents, although there are some, things you don't like in your parents. You can never blame or use this as an opportunity to forget about them and probably avoid interaction with them. Armenia as a homeland is just like a parent. You should more focus on probably a mission and a role of a change agent through the business models which proven to be successful if you're really following and if you're really aligned to the standards in your everyday life. So, sorry for a long presentation, but this is what I wanted to share with you on who we are and what we do back in Armenia.
here and attending this event, and hopefully it will be the beginning of the mutual cooperation, because we have entered the American market to be the bridge between Armenia and USA, and while being first focused as a diaspora related bridge, we hope that it will be a two-way drive where both American and Armenian investors will succeed with our help. I would like just to do a short presentation on the legal environment in Armenia, and I will try to avoid a lot of using legal terms, just to brief you how the works are going in the development of the legal framework governing businesses in Armenia. And I would just state that the legislative developments which are covering Armenia, those cover Artsakh as well. Artsakh mostly implements the laws which are developed in Armenia, and they extend the jurisdiction to Artsakh affairs. Of course, they have a separate judicial system, they have separate constitution, etc. But they use the experience of Armenian legal development and legislative work to develop their laws in Artsakh. I would like to stress the importance of some of the laws which were adopted in Armenia just after the independence. And one of the major laws which was adopted was the law on protection of foreign investment. It was pretty high-ranked law by foreign investors and the foreign consultants when it was developed. And I must tell you that the law which was adopted back in 1994 was just slightly changed up to now. So the basic principles which are incorporated there are still governing the legal framework in relation to the foreign investments. I will just state some of the principles of the foreign investment governing framework which might be of interest for you, and those are implemented by the state and by the judiciary in the country. One of the main principles is the basically absence of any kind of possible confiscation or nationalization of the resources invested. It could be done only through the court and in cases only of state emergency. So basically the investment is protected, and there is a favorable environment to protect such investment under the second principle, which is so-called grandfathering clause. What does it mean? That whenever the investor enters the Armenian market and it faces the legal framework which governs its business during the entrance into the market, and subsequently thereafter the legislation changes, then the foreign investment can opt for the former legislation to govern its business when he entered the market for another 5 years. So basically you have a protection of the grandfathering clause in running your business in Armenia. Of course, you can select to use the laws which are developed now, but basically if you enter the market in year 2002 and there was a drastic change in the regulatory framework related to your business in 2012, you can opt for the 2007 basic regulation. Another important aspect of the foreign investment is that the standard which is implemented is not less favorable regime, so its national regime is called shortly, but I can explain that it's not less favorable regime in regulation than provided to the locals, so basically Armenian businesses. This is very important, that the state does not differentiate between these two types of the investments, and basically the local investment is protected in the way as a foreign investment. So basically you enjoy the national regime of legal framework on your businesses. Another important law, and this talks about how the state approached the handling of the post-independence legal development in Armenia, is that one of the very initial laws adopted by the state was, after the constitution, was the land content. Armenia was the first country in post-Soviet region which privatized the land. But it was done for raising and for supporting the agriculture, etc. This was done just after the independence. For example, in Russia still there's a debate whether they can privatize the land or not, and whether it could be privatized, for example, to foreign entities or not. So in Armenia, from the very beginning, this issue was resolved. Another important development, which is new development, is eases the doing business in Armenia. It's opening up the businesses, has become part of the e-government system introduced by the state during the last 3 years. It shortens the period of waiting for the registration of the business. It just makes the business like the registration online, and basically it this allows now the interaction between the state official in charge of the business registration and the applicant, which drastically decreases any kind of, corruption possibilities, risks. So basically, the same type of development was done on some other parts of the e-governance, such as, for example, registration of your title towards the immovable property. So there are developments, and Armenia was part of the campaign we were doing in relation to the project was called ESD Dev, I know, which basically supports the initiatives of the government related to ease the doing business, is the situation with the state-citizen relationship. And Armenia was doing the PR campaign on that, explaining from the different standpoint that I know how the taxes are collected, I know what was changed in the tax administration, I know how to establish my own business, I know how to run the business, etc., etc. So this was quite an impressive campaign, which was just ended before, or it's even
together with the World Bank.
Supported by the World Bank and together with the World Bank, so which provides the knowledge to even local citizens on the areas of their daily life and how the government framework changes their daily life, and they can use it, because there is a major education element in having very good laws, transforming into the practice. As a professional lawyer, I can tell, and I think I will support that, basically the laws of Armenia are well developed. They are well thought in majority of the cases, and they are developed based on the best practices. For example, Armenia has never followed the Russian way of financial market governing framework development. We follow the way how it's done in the best jurisprudences such as USA or Western European countries, and therefore our banking and financial legislation is very advanced and is considered as one of the most advanced legislations in post-Soviet world. For the same time, for example, we followed the model regulation on the civil code, which was developed by very bright German and Russian lawyers. So basically, we try to consider that if we, for example, undertake the civil path as a continental law country in development of our civil legislation, we nevertheless think of Anglo-Saxon methodology in implementing the financial legislation. And therefore, I have to tell that the legislation development is basically done on the proper level. Of course, there is a mismatch between the legislation itself and the practice. So what we as lawyers and we as a group see, very important part of our work is educational element to do that the law matches the practice. And I would like to state one important thing, that basically whenever we have the investor on our board and we have a basic introduction to the Armenian market, what we do in majority of the cases, we begin from the greenfield. Basically, well, Armenia is known for having assisting investors from the zero and up until now. We have clients who are staying from us from the very beginning of the business. We open up the business and we do the counseling. This is not only the legal counseling. They have become now, for example, the clients of the bank, etc. But they do with us basic their assurances, taxation advice, etc. Management advisory services as well. A recent legal development which is very important for the Armenian market is the labor legislation, and we have now collected on our board one of the best lawyers practicing in the field of the labor law, and we actually are very good in structuring the labor relations within the organization. So whenever, and this is very regulated market on the labor side, not like in the USA. There are a lot of traps to know and to avoid. So basically, we are very supportive in that, and we are considering that the investor who is coming and does not consider this as a part, because it's internal part of the business, not visible for the investor. We are structuring it in the proper way, not to have any kind of problems with the government and with the relevant authorities. And what I would stress, the last issue is there might be a lot of questions in relation to corruption and basically judiciary, because many investors, they are concerned about the independence of the judiciary. I must tell one thing. Of course, we cannot say that there is no corruption in Armenia, but I cannot share the views which might be widespread in some cycles of diaspora that is total corruption. It's basically not the case. And there is a government program which is consistently implemented. And we, as private players in the market, we do consistently implement the same standards to make the, our system of dispute resolution free or less corruption based. And for our investors, we are structuring different ways to avoid possibly the judiciary in case needed. And we do propose mediation services, we do propose arbitration, or we do propose the neutral venue of dispute resolution in order to mitigate this concern. But nevertheless, in the cases when we approach the judiciary, our record is quite good, and we are working on the pre-court level in the way that our documentary evidence is strong enough not to allow, even if judge is thinking of some other ways of behavior, not to allow the judge to have such a room for such kind of behavior. So basically, just to wrap up, as a summary, I can tell that the legislation itself provides a good room for the investment in Armenia. The taxes, if compared with some other jurisdictions, are not very high. The profit tax is just around 20%. And basically, Armenian legislation is a free zone for your investment. In case you do invest in Armenia, you have paid your taxes, the proceeds of your business you own. There's no any limitation to transfer it back to USA, to Australia, whenever you want, or to use it for reinvestment into the Armenian economy. And the transfer could be done in any currency you want. There's no limitation on the currencies in relation to your investment in Armenia. And basically we are here and there for you to be a bridge, and hopefully this bridge will be the way to invest in Armenia, and from which both the state, the Armenian state, and you will benefit, and it will be the two-way drive. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I agree that the laws in Armenia are quite progressive. They have been drafted by able people. It is a healthy mix of continental law and Anglo-Saxon approach to things. There is a mismatch between law and practice, which is expected, but it has to move in the right direction. And to bridge that gap, it's the investor who must seek out the proper advice, proper support, and as you see it, that is available in Armenia. The message is there, that there is the necessary support in Armenia to guide you in such a way that that disconnect is bridged between practice and data.
I would like just to add one comment, that basically we are doing new product in Armenia which is not for commercial purposes and which is not bringing us money, but it takes a lot of time from us. Our lawyers are part of the initiative, and we signed the memorandum of cooperation with the Ministry of Justice, and actually all the business-related laws drafts, they are undergoing our expertise. We are doing it for free, but we view it as a businessman into the law which should be adopted by the state. We have this cooperation for 6 months, it's quite successful, and we are commenting on each law which, from the point of ease the business to be done.
Thank you, and this is the opportunity to ask questions. Feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like, and I'm sure after this formal session they will be open to discuss matters further with you.
Majority of your revenues come from lending or advisory, or both?
It's a very good question. It's about 2/3 of our revenue is banking, not only lending, but banking, because you have interest on interest, you have trade financing, you have other cross-border transaction related, and 1/3 is non-banking activities. And in this regard, investment banking is rapidly growing. This is really a market, and by investment banking, I mean mostly LBOs, MBOs, corp-fin related projects, M&As. It's really a serious, I would say, a new jump, quality jump. Businesses are now less emotional, more rational. They're trying to engage in consolidation activities, in takeovers, reverses, valuations, due diligences. it's really, we are overloaded and we are going, expanding our investment banking, and we believe that within the next 2-3 years, the structure of our revenue will change drastically. I mean, it will definitely be more towards non-banking.
Other questions?
I am with tourism, but my question is different business. Whatever you're doing now, or your advertising, or whatever you're doing is aimed towards Armenian businesses or whatever. Do you also advertise or solicit the non-Armenian businesses, banking, insurance, maybe manufacturers who manufacture in India and I don't know where, you know? Do you do that also?
Well, we have, I mean, several dozen of foreign clients, international clients, non-Armenian. For example, some of them California, because a lot of software developer companies, large non-Armenian, again, software developer companies, are heavily presented in Armenia, outsourcing a lot of their processes to Armenia. And everything which relates to legal support, accounting, tax, labor-related issues, banking for their inception and then set up. So all of those are actually our clients being served by our group. But also, as I said during my presentation, we are part of almost any large FDI. And as you know, large FDIs are non-Armenian, unfortunately. Whether this is mining, which is a very serious sector of Armenian GDP today, whether this is a large franchise and transnational corporations, so Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, couple of our competitors being a mix of equity investments from different banks are our clients as well. For example, we represent Crédit Agricole in their investments in Agba Crédit Agricole Armenia. Can you imagine? We as lawyers represent VTB in their VTB Armenia bank. So there are a couple of cases which shows the level of integrity we have within our practices. And of course, a lot of companies which for many reasons are staying low profile or minority equity shareholders in different projects are also our clients. They usually we represent them low profile when it relates to a large project, and they're on the board with a couple of other partners in the consortium. So it's really a case. Unfortunately, overall absolute FDI figures are among the lowest throughout post-Soviet countries. We are larger than only Kyrgyzia, which is a very small, underdeveloped, and undergoing political turbulences country. So this is really an issue which alarmed some 2 years ago, and now leadership of the country announced a couple of policies in this regard. As I said, business environment change, administration in tax and customs, and of course there's a new expert development industrial policy introduced, which is specifically focused on a couple of sectors which have serious growth potential over the next 3 to 5 years.
Maybe there's a question more for David. A lot of foreign investors, when they look at investing in countries like Armenia, in the back of their mind at some point is how they can seek redress or issues that arise. And, they look to the judiciary for that. Now, on the largest investors, a lot of international companies have the benefit of imposing like ICC arbitration provisions where they go to London and have their issue. For the smaller medium investor looking to have some kind of redress outside the judiciary, you in passing mentioning about the developing alternative dispute resolution opportunities. So my question is twofold. One, are the laws developed in Armenia that address that option? And two, is there a growing industry of private mediators or arbitrators? And can you get binding arbitration by agencies outside of our judiciary?
Short answer is yes. Basically, we have a long commercial arbitration, and Armenia was part of New York Commission as well. And basically what we do, and again, we explain everything to the client, and the client decides on the possibilities. We could go as far as just to do ad hoc arbitration in Armenia when the parties appoint arbitrator and you select first one from the panel or whichever you decide, or you can go outside of Armenia. Basically, the arbitration awards are binding, whether it's done in Armenia or outside of Armenia, because it's part of our legislative system. The culture of ADR development within the Armenian businesses is not high, because they mostly rely on the state-run, on the state judiciary. They do trust more the judiciary. But when there is a foreign investment element, they do consider alternative dispute resolution because it's coming from their culture.
Following up with this, let's say you did get a judgment, a binding arbitration resulted in a judgment. How is that valuable for the person who received it, other than the piece of paper that's written for collection purposes?
Well, basically it's the part of the judicial process completion. It's just the first step. Then there are several ways of getting it to the court, and the court does not hear the case de novo. Basically, the court, based on that arbitration, issues the collection paper, and the collection paper is done again. We have done with the financing of the World Bank big project on introduction of quasi-state collection service in Armenia. We have done the pros and cons. It was quite well perceived by the government and by the World Bank, but basically quasi-state collection agency is not established yet. But we have a quite efficiently working state agency, which is part of the Ministry of Justice. And basically that agency works on some kind of commercial notions, because they generate the fee from the collection. So basically they get success fee from that collection. So there's an interest to do the collection.
Okay. And one more thing. If you can touch upon the differences, the major differences in doing business in Armenia versus doing business in Artsakh, since you have presence in both, the major differences that you've seen as an attorney and also as just as a general business person?
Well, I would not see the major differences, basically, because they use the same civil code like in Armenia. So provided that the civil code is the basic principles governing the legal framework, and you develop the laws based on the principles of the civil code, there is no major difference, only the slight difference.
Yeah, I would go with more philosophical. I think it's much more pure, if I may use this word, environment in Artsakh. Artsakh is perceived to be something, special in many ways. It relates also to, business environment, enforcement, public institutions. So everything is much more sterile and much more clean, if I may use all of this, and if I may pass this, sense. So I would say it is much more easier to do business in Artsakh. You enjoy because it's a small and devoted, committed, and open, romantic people. So in many ways, as we see a lot of projects and clients. As I said, we have opened our first branch of our bank in Artsakh. We have largest portfolio in Artsakh, being present in almost all sectors. And we see how well managed really the market, country, and environment is. I would say the only issue is a global so-called jurisdiction issue, which prevents a lot of foreign non-Armenian investors going there, because everyone who has an opportunity to go through, I mean, they compare with Armenia and definitely all prefer, due to many reasons, Artsakh as a better destination. The only issue is with the jurisdiction.
I can't agree with Andre and David more. The real issue is the non-recognition of that jurisdiction. Otherwise, the country is run very efficiently, like a medium-sized company with a CEO sitting on top of it, where issues are resolved in a very efficient way. It's governed in an efficient way. So it's a very interesting situation. Anna?
Question for Mr. Manoogian and one for Mr. Sarkisian. Mr. Manoogian, could you tell us a little bit more about the assets of the bank, specifically the lending? Specifically, what kind of loans the bank is providing, mortgages, personal, etc.? Because that is where the economy benefits mainly from the banking system. With respect to Mr. Sarkisian, you're right, in the diaspora there is the perception that there is corruption in Armenia, and I'm glad that you mentioned that that is not an accurate picture. There is a perception that if someone opens a business in Armenia, there will be oligarchs or mafioso people who will come and will give hard time to this person. Now, could you tell us, and stories are very important, that's how we get our perceptions. Could you tell us some success stories from your clients or from your knowledge where a business person opened a business in Armenia and some oligarchs or mafios tried to give hard time, and through the legal system you were able to protect them from anyone who is trying to put pressure on them and hurt them financially? Stories, success stories could change the perception that exists in diaspora.
If I may also participate in his answer, well, first of all, about the loan portfolio structure and our asset structure. As I said, we have the largest loan portfolio in the country, which means we are present in almost all sectors. It is, of course, less retail because we started as a corporate and investment bank and we're now moving towards retail. Although we have balanced mortgages, consumer lending, we have very good card business. Most of middle class and high net worth individuals from the country are clients of Ameribank in terms of cards, because we issue all systems, Master, Visa, Amex, with all their types, and we have largest POS terminal network, ATM network in Armenia, and of course there's discount systems which work globally. In terms of corporate lending, it's literally all sectors of our economy, but because of our very, I would say, proactive strategy alignment exercise, we have pre-identified major priorities and sectors for our investments, being so-called counter-cyclical or crisis-proof. So among them, for example, energy sector, which is really, I would say, which enjoys investments from foreign investors, Armenians. It's a booming sector, and we have the largest portfolio in the country. Because the market is regulated, you have, when you start, you have for 10 years fixed price. Everything you produce is sold, because by the law, all energy is through the centralized dispatcher is sold to the network because of overall energy structure misbalance or mismatch. Renewables are prioritized by the rate and by sales. So in fact, you start a business, all what you have to do is to focus the first year of properly launching a hydropower plant, and then for the next 30 years you do nothing, because there is no marketing or sales cost, everything is sold, as I said. The price is fixed every 10 years, so there is no kind of a pricing issue. there is no organization of production, tax, or customs aspects. Your interaction with the state of Armenia is minimum. So because of all of these, we focused in this sector, and we have a large portfolio. And nowadays, by the way, a lot of Dutch, German, Czech, so a lot of investors are in Armenia in this sector, because it looks for them like a debt instrument, a bond, with an annual return of, I would say, from 15 to 20%, because it depends on the different HPPs. When they compare it to 5, maximum 6% you can have in Eastern Europe, this really attracts a lot of investors in the country. So, and then with all of these renewables together, it is still 20% of our energy produced, except two larger, Sevan Razdan hydropower cascade and Vorotan cascade. So it's still, it will never be an issue. You will never fully rely on Russian gas or Phantom nuclear power plant, which nobody knows when and how will be launched, a new one. So this is energy, mining. Most of the champions, Zangezur copper molybdenum plant, Armenian copper ACP copper plant, Tevut, so Leach, Terasa. So about 24 of different copper, molybdenum, gold mining companies are our clients, and there you have even with a lowest commodity prices that we had, if you recall, in 2007-8, it is still a very profitable business, and they're among top 10 largest taxpayers in the country. So this is the second sector. Third, it is telecom, which is a kind of a club of 3 players, and we enjoy having 2 out of the 3 as our clients. We are pretty aggressive in cross-selling different other services and products with them, including salary projects, joint co-branded campaigns, projects, etc. Among these sectors, of course, IT, which is probably over the last 15-20 years the only sector which had never experienced decline despite anything that happened. What else? We are almost everywhere. Trade, I mentioned in retail mortgages, we have a very large portfolio, and we interact with most of the developers on the local market. And there, it is more for us a retail instrument to work with a corporate client, so with a developer rather than with retail clients. But trade, of course, which is very interesting. Armenia has almost $3.5 billion in imports, and we introduced on the local market trade financing instruments without a capital involved. So we reduced cost of capital for our clients almost 3 times, because an LC guarantee and trade financing other instruments are about 3% per annum, while loans are at least 10 to 12% per annum for a trade. So just imagine a difference. So, and that's why it's really also an interesting and booming sector. So we are almost everywhere in the country. We are managing our exposure through our understanding and vision of what will happen to the sector and to the economy in general. A couple of words about the success story. First of all, our story is an example. When we started, when we actually planned to step into banking industry in 2007, there were 22 banks, and people were saying, "Are you crazy, guys? This is really a very, tough market. I mean, there's nothing to do. There's nothing to catch. There are 5, 6 banks which have about 65–70% of the overall market, and yet, as I said, I'm not part of any party. I'm minority shareholder. I have two large shareholders which are outside of Armenia, and there was no interaction with any of the oligarchs or anyone around. And this is what we have. This is just an example. I wouldn't like to create an illusion that there are no problems and everything is so clean and you know. But the issue is that it is not so open and bold. You don't feel it one day or one time. It's kind of a process. If companies and businesses are getting bigger, they can definitely start to you know, create waves around it. So you start to feel interaction with larger businesses, and of course people are trying to use administrative resources they have, and in this regard you should be consistently following your path. Cases where people have problems with oligarchs or state are mostly the cases where someone started something wrongly. If you are engaging in these games, if you start to play with the rules, then you will have problems. If you are following consistently a concept and standards, then it is gradually, you know, for 3-4 years, tax were not actually knocking our door. Because we have a reputation of A, to be completely transparent and clean, and B, we never engaged in any interaction with anyone. So there's no sense for them. I mean, it's obvious. But these stories, I truly believe, and I share openly with you, are part of our past. Over the last several years, things change, seriously change. And you can see David brought a couple of examples. People understand that there's a shorter way how to have this, you know, and as I said, Georgia catalyzed that mental change. It is obvious what is happening in Georgia, that there are more businesses. By the way, the reason why we are trying to pursuing a potential transaction in Georgia, buying a bank in Georgia, is the fact that many Armenian businesses expand to Georgia. They grow, you know, open their businesses in Georgia because of business environment, because of the small Armenian market. So our future is definitely is more larger area than only Armenia. And of course, there are a couple of dozen success stories, examples how businesses started from nothing. The same oligarchs, they started. Top 3-4 oligarchs that everybody knows, they started from scratch. No one is a relative or son or something. They started from scratch. Of course, they were using other concepts how to you know, reach success. And this, during this, after the collapse of the Soviet, during these post-Soviet times, it was really chaos. So unfortunately, a lot of people were successful going through different you know, models, and they truly believe that this is what they should do in this environment to succeed. Now things definitely change, especially when they are trying to attract funding, you know, equity partners, different IFIs, IDOs. We as investment bankers, as you know, financial people involved, we are part of this influence. We're part of this change. A couple of large export champions, for example, in agricultural industry, which are our clients, they now undergo serious corporate governance cleansing, you know, and it starts with mental changes. I can assure you, one can feel it. This really is happening. Of course, another catalyzer is an election period that people see that we are now 21 year after independence, and Singapore reached $140 billion in GDP over 17 years. So if you compare and align, and you understand that we lost time. It was like an opportunity that we lost. We could have turned a small Armenia into Singapore. We have only 10 billion in GDP PPP weighted. And Singapore created 150 billion in GDP. It's the same 3.5 million population without resources. So things change, and when we see what some of our neighbors do, I think this is now widely discussed in Armenia among elite.
Well, Andrew has provided a very comprehensive answer, I think, and I would just add one minor issue. Let's look from the other perspective too, because we have investors, and these are kind of real-life stories, who do adopt the games which are proposed, for example, for local partners. And whenever something goes wrong, the PR part of it is becoming that there is problem with the state, not with the person. We have many examples of such kind of stories. For example, if you previously it was very widespread in Armenia, now the state even reacted and we have new laws in place. For example, when you were building huge residential complex to sell it out, even the foreign investment, they were following the path to avoid possible taxation. What they were doing, they were selling the apartments to someone to resell it in the market at the market price and to gain the profit out of taxes. So basically there are schemes which people were using, and because in using that they were relying on some of the local parties which might not have been oligarch or mafiosos, etc., but they played that game in the way that future profit distribution was not done in the fair way as considered by the foreign investors, and they blame for it the state. But when we go deeper into the case, we understand that that was the rule which entering the market adopted from the very beginning. So you cannot blame the state or because of your partner being, not honest with you, because the same could have done by you to him. Because if you are doing the sales out of the, real market, everything is possible. So if you adopt the rule which is not within the compliance of the formal rules, you always have that risk, because you cannot even go to court to claim that, because how you will make sure that the secondary sale was in the price which was not, equally distributed to you. There are a lot of such kind of stories. I would be happy to receive the case which you, for example, will refer as a case which had the influence of oligarchs, etc. Look into the matter from very formal point of view and explain.
I just want to elaborate on the example he gave, so that you see how a circumvention by an investor becomes a negative PR for the government. What he was saying is, if you develop property and the developer, a company, sells it to the ultimate buyer who is going to occupy it, you pay your taxes. The company has to pay taxes. However, if you sell it to an individual and that individual resells it in private citizen to private citizen, there is no tax. So what an investor can potentially do is sell it to this 80-year-old woman who has not even seen, not an oligarch, an 80-year-old woman, for minimum profit, so corporate taxes are not paid. Then that 80-year-old lady resells it to the real ultimate buyers, and that's where the profit is. Taxes are not paid. The tax authorities catch the problem. They go after the developer. The developer cries foul, says, I'm a foreign investor, I want protection. Yet, that 80-year-old woman is not a foreign investor. Now, I am a businessman in Armenia too. I'm involved in development, I'm involved in tourism, I'm involved in telecom. I haven't had shakedowns, he hasn't had shakedowns. At the same time, we can't say that it's non-existent in Armenia. Growing pains, we're getting from one point to the other. But one thing has to be very clear. The shadier the inception of the business is, the more likely it is that they will have problems with the government. Generally, when you trace a problem, okay, where you see corruption, which actually exists, where you see improper government involvement in certain, then you see that there's participation from the inception by the individual. That's when you cannot seek redress. We have a very well-founded legal concept here, unclean hands. The law does not protect someone who himself is involved in circumventing the law. So, in addressing corruption, we shouldn't just focus on those who take it or give you difficulty, but those who also pay it at the inception, okay, and try to circumvent the law. That's how we're going to make progress, and I think we are, because people see that there's more benefit today in doing things right than finding shortcuts. Apo, you had your hand up?
Ինչպես կարելի է ընկերությունը, ամերիկյան ընկերությունը, միշտ ներում եմ, ամերիկյան ընկերությունը բաց ընկերություններ թե փակ, կարելի է արժեք գնել ընկերություններ թե ոչ, եւ երկրորդ, ինչպես պիտի աշխատի ձեր Լոս Անջելեսի կլասները։
Շատ լավ հարց է։ It's a very good question. It is a closed joint stock company. And we are not now raising equity or attracting investors because we don't really have an issue of equity investment. But we plan our IPOs in 3 to 5 years from now, and we will definitely be following this concept of being open, transparent, and first Armenian IPO. And we, of course, we have ambitions to be, listed in one of the top stock exchanges. And this overall strategy and concept of Pan-Armenian focus is, in fact, a part of this long-term understanding and vision. And we hope very much that with the awareness, visibility, and with our outreach that we will have around Armenian world, once we will start our IPO, it will be much more easier for you to follow, to see where we are, what we do, how we do, and it will definitely be much more easier also for you to take those decisions to get into our equities one day. As to mission of the U.S. presence, as I said at the beginning, that currently we as a group would like to be around, Armenian community here with everything that they plan, they think, or they already have. And being around means available in terms of any of our services and activities which could ease, facilitate, smooth, oil these frictions that one could have cross-border in the jurisdiction of the homeland. And of course, it's a process. There's dynamics, and we believe that within the next several years, from a mission of an outreach and promotion of our Group services in Armenia, this U.S. presence will gradually become a profit center of rendering services related on both sides of Armenian diaspora bridge. And we very much hope that within next probably a couple of years, we will be also reviewing the possibilities of acquiring a bank here in States, which would allow us to integrate in our structure in pre-IPO concept.
Two more questions.
In your slide, your return on equity in 2004 was 19% versus the recent one was 12%. Was there a dynamic change or there was peaking in certain sectors? Because 2004 was not 2008. I mean, was that sector peaking?
Well, you should know that when you start from a very small basis, when you start with $100, it's easy to have 200% growth. When you, our basis actually grows times. As I said, we bought a bank of $9 million in equity. It is now, yes, it is now $100 million. It was a bank with 25 million in assets. It is now $550 million in assets. So the smaller the bank, and you can see also on the ranking list, very small banks that we have even higher return on equity than we, because they're cherry picking. It's a boutique. It's not really a large financial institution. It's a boutique that cherry picking their projects and clients, and they're trying to have really a maximum rate of return.
Go back to the environmental property sector, as you told many of mining companies are your clients. As we know, recently Armenia are activating civil movements concerning environmental programs. The main point is that international companies such as Armenian Corporate Program, international companies are exploiting natural resources of Armenia. As your clients, what is done by you to minimize that damage to our native environment of Armenia? And I'd like to know your opinion about the environment of
If I may, I would like to split into two parts. I mean, one is an Armenian, not as a business serving mining. I would say we have a dilemma. We have small and beautiful country, and we have challenges and goals. So, if you would like, among your priorities, to change the country, leadership and people, community, they announced tourism is one of the top 4 or 5 priorities. As a professional, I must say that it may take probably several decades when the tourism could play a role that mining plays today for the country. GDP, employment, productivity, taxes. It could take 5-6 decades, and I'm not sure that we will be there even after 50 years. So dilemma is to have, I would say, billions, because ACP's Tevut program itself is like $500 million investment, and with several billions in return. So it's a dilemma. What is our priority? Because what they do is, of course, exploiting natural resources. They create jobs, they pay taxes, it's a large corporation, they grow, they bring best practice international industrial culture. So it's all about, I mean, and I refrain to say what is right, what is not. I mean, it's like a decision that probably should be made on a more wider forum. But this is an issue. As a bank, of course, we have, according to our ISO standards and according to our IFI partners, we're complying to ESMS policies, and wherever we have that formal opportunity and leverage, we use it to make our investments ESMS compliant. But frankly speaking, this is unfortunately a country which desperately needs these investments, and I must say that unfortunately decisions are made more towards short-term benefits of developments of the country.
Thank you. We'll take a lunch break now, and we'll return in half an hour?
15 minutes.
15 minutes. Okay. They must have had a lot of food. We'll start our second session. And as Andre said earlier, there's something romantic about everything we do in Qarabağ. And what Alek is doing in Qarabağ has its genesis in romance, but it's structured as a professional business. Alek is a good friend of mine, and I've always been proud of that friendship because he does his things in style. although he's going to talk about the business in Qarabağ, before anything else, is a benefactor. Him and his wife Alenush have been involved through the Armenian Education Foundation in the reconstruction of schools. They themselves have sponsored and paid for the reconstruction of 3 schools in Armenia. Besides that, he has been involved in the business in Armenia for a while, which also has its benevolent aspect of it, because I think doing anything to employ young people in Armenia is not only a business, but it's also a social mission. And years before many people started thinking about investing in Armenia, Alec, who has a software development company, went and established shop in Armenia. He's got, I think, 25 people working for him there. And he looks at things in a critical way and says we can expand as much as we want, except that Armenia cannot supply the numbers we need. So he gets involved in creating education centers. He had a plan to establish one in Burbank, if I'm not mistaken, and I think he did. When Glendale became sister cities with Burbank, Alex's first reaction was, if we're going to do something, let's start training young programmers so that we have people to hire. And that's something we can sell. Closed borders are not a problem with software development because you can transport it as long as you have a telephone line. Years ago, he got involved in a real estate project in Shushi. And they are now almost done with the core part of the business. They have developed the old center of Shushi with a hotel, a conference center in it. They're going to rebuild, if they haven't already, the old bath. And it really is going to become a touristic attraction that employs people and puts Shushi on the touristic map. And just to go beyond a real estate project, they're already sponsoring cultural projects there. The first poetry that caught the Poetry Festival of Shushi will take place in 2012. It takes creativity and it takes dedication to come up with projects like that. He has also created a site called learnarmenian.com, where you can learn Armenian and children's songs and stories and poems. These are all very interesting things that Alec and his wife Alenush do besides business. Alec, it's your turn.
Thank you. I want to start by thanking the Artsakh Development Group and the Mary Group for setting up, for sponsoring today's event. I'm proud to be a part of this panel. I'm very impressed, very excited about what I've heard talked about so far here today. I think events like the one we're having here today are very, very important to bridge the gap between the Armenian businesses and the diaspora. I think they're a very powerful diaspora, as you all know, and I think a lot could be done through education, by educating the folks in diaspora that organizations like Armenia Group are available, that will provide the needed assistance to help address some of the concerns, some of the fears that some diasporans have about doing business in Armenia and Artsakh. I want to let you know that my today's presentation is primarily focused on Artsakh and development in Artsakh. So I'll be talking about that aspect of it. My presentation will provide some information from different websites that are available that I compile to communicate to you about what you can do, where you can go to get some information. Then I will share some of my own personal experience. It's not at the same level that American Group's projects are, but there are things that we've done, and I think those are small projects, but very, very important. If we're going to have the diaspora get involved, probably smaller projects we want to get started with, and on and on. So with that, some key info about Artsakh. Symbol is we are mountains, also known as Mamik and Papik. We all hear about the beauty of Artsakh and Qarabağ, and it's good that we Armenians talk about it and tell ourselves how wonderful it is. But when you find out that Huffington Post and ABC News ranked Qarabağ as one of the places to go see in 2012, then it hits you. Because it's no longer us, it's no longer two Armenians telling each other how beautiful Artsakh is. I always joke around, I'm from Tehran, and we had a newspaper called Alik, and according to Alik, everything was somehow tied to Armenians, and my mom would read that and tell me everyone was Armenian, but this is not it. This is, very well respected, organizations, Huffington Post and ABC News, that are ranking Qarabağ as one of the places to go see in 2012. Some statistics about Artsakh Qarabağ population is of 1/2009, 139,000. And to put it in perspective, it's about 70% of Glenda's population, if I'm correct, roughly. So when you think about Artsakh, a country that we fought and we liberated, and we all, some lost their lives, some have injuries in their family, have lost ones that are gonna, those memories are gonna be with them for years to come. But it's 139,000, very small group of people, and that we can easily, through the power of diaspora, have a big impact on their well-being, in their socio-economic, well-being. Area, it's the size of LA County. As you can see, it's 4457 square miles. So includes 7 regions and Stepanakert as the capital. I've put some information down about each one of the regions. Basically, what's common is wheat and potato, vegetable calibrating, and some wine production. So you'll see that pretty much folks are involved in farming and cattle and so forth as a way of making their living. By the way, most of the information that I provide at the top, I basically have noted the source for that information. So this comes from Artsakh Investment Fund, the investor guide published in 2010. The main goals of economic policy of Artsakh for the next 5 years, and again, I got this from the NKR USA website: provide economic growth based on domestic and foreign markets, achieve macroeconomic balance to stabilize the state's budget through simulation of real production and further improvement. Later on one of my slides, I talk about how one company, through the taxes that they pay, and of course in mining, pays about 17% of the Qarabağ's budget. So that some of these success stories was mentioned are real, and it could have such impact in country's future, in country's budget. Continued privatization, there are always projects that are available to take on. When I go to Artsakh, it reminds me of Armenia. About 10 years ago, in 90s, 97, 8, 9, you could hear there were projects in Armenia that you could take on by drones, or maybe earlier. Artsakh, you still can find some of those projects which lags behind. So there are projects that you can get involved in, you can found, and on and on. And again, it was talked about earlier, some laws that are intended to promote foreign investment. They're available and could be used to help your business succeed. Top 10 reasons to do business in Artsakh. For some of our David Letterman fans, what would be accomplished with our top 10 list? Well-trained and inexpensive labor force. And I should add to that, it's not only well-trained and inexpensive, these are people that are so committed to your projects, so committed to you. I mean, every time I go there, I just love it, myself, I'm one of those people that talks to everybody from all levels of employees that we have, and I'm proud that we have good number of employees that we hire, whether it's in our Shuga or Bat or the hotel. And they're just wonderful people. They go over and above. Whether it was during the construction when we were laying tiles or painting the rooms, or now when they're cleaning up their, the hotel rooms and or taking care of guests, we always have very, very good comments on our Facebook page about the way our employees approach our projects. So tax benefits, as was stated, and you can again find on NKR USA website. There are a lot of tax benefits that are very pro-investors, and then you can use. And I can also add to that at least our experience has been, and our projects are not very large, much larger projects that could be taken on. We've had a very open line of communication with different government officials, and they've been very helpful in working with us, in helping us make sure that our projects are successful. They're almost like a friend to us to take part in our projects and help us do things right. Extremely low operating expense, and on and on. Again, there's some other items that they all come from the website again. What I did, I went to the Investor Guide published in 2010, and I listed some of the projects that they have listed on the website as things that diasporans can invest on. And you can see what's nice about this is that you have the mines, and in addition to that, you have some smaller projects that, a jam factory, medicinal teas, production of vegetable oils, meat products, dried food. A lot of these are type of projects that I'm sure if you go to our Armenians in diaspora, you'll find many people that have expertise in these areas, and these projects could easily be invested in, and become real, and you basically would have employees that are working for you. You'll have businesses that are working hard. I also added a page, again, this is all from Investor Guide, about the output of products, and you can see everything from limestone to decorating tiles to parquet floor. And I have a friend that does this in Yerevan, tiles, decorative tiles, and some of these tiles that are manufactured are sold in Walker and Zanger, that some of them are that are in construction. You see there's one more exclusive, more expensive tile stores, and these tiles are sold, and one of the more expensive tiles. So they're similar type operation that could be set up in Artsakh, window frames, and some of meat, dairy products, cheese, so great wines, and what else could anyone want at the age of retirement to have a nice winery and produce wine and be able to market that wine. Here I've just gone in depth into some of the projects, and what I did, I basically contacted the local government and said I want some success stories of some of the wineries that are established and that are actually working and generating wine and are selling. So there's an Italian investors that started a winery in Sheker village. Wines are to be exported in Italy. Russian investors in a winery in Tok village, again exported. And there's wines that are sold in Armenian market in Armenia, Lindoni and Charens brand. And then again, these are the type of things that could be done that do not require major investments. I went through and also underlined, as I gathered this information from the website, some of the information like that Republic of, in the meat processing area, Republic exports fresh meats and usually imports back sausages and processed meats. And through my business, setting up computers for production assembly lines in US, I know it doesn't take much to set up plants to process some meat and make some sausages and so forth. So I look at situations like this, and it just shake my head and say, I wish I wasn't in a situation that could invest in such a endeavor. And I think a lot of this, again, going back to what we're doing here today, if there are forums available to communicate similar type things to diaspora in general, and communicate, more importantly, the fact that there are organizations like American Group that will protect your rights and so forth and so on, and similar projects could become reality for many of them. Again, milk processing, that it talks about the size that it was in 1980s, 40,000 tons, and what it is now today. So it's the same country, the same place, and there's really no reason why they cannot the generation could not be at the same levels. Of course, fruit and vegetable canning. Here on this page, I have some websites that will provide you information about doing different work in Burbank. And my apologies for not having a American group here. I'll make sure that in the future presentation I'll have a American group. Personally, very, very impressed by today's presentation. I think organizations like American Group are really needed to help investors to make sure that their rights are protected, and so that there's no issues or no problems. Some new developments, and again, there's a new highway going to Artsakh, and again, this is called Soch Karvajar, that I believe goes to Sevan Martaket, and Barten is a June-July timeframe for travelers, probably be a few months late. That's Armenians, we always have to fashionably late. So, but it's nice. It's supposed to be 60 kilometers shorter and more scenic to go through Sevan, and it's supposed to be less of a winding road. So we'll see. Of course, we have an airport that is ready to open. In process of getting the airplane, and probably Wahid can later on fill us in on more current status of it. I want to just also mention a few examples. Base metals to invest $80 million in a new copper and molybdenum deposit mine. Currently, the organization employs about 1,100 persons, and its taxes account for 18% of our budget revenues. So earlier we were talking about mines, and it's the dilemma between what you can do for the people and the government. So even when one mine can pay for 17%, one organization, I'm sure, large organization can pay for 17% of the country's budget. Perhaps that's why we can balance and consider both sides of the issue. Hydropower stations will remain a station part of Artsakh Energy. 6 are already functioning, 2 more are under construction. So again, this comes from the Artsakh newsletter. I suggest if anybody is interested, send an email to the representative's office, and you'll be receiving this monthly newsletters. They're very, very informative. I always read them. I always go through them. Always have very valuable information about Artsakh. Over the last decades, I've also mentioned that Artsakh's gross domestic product has increased by 8 times. So that's in this economy. It's very, very important to make sure that in spite of the downturns in the economy, we've been able to have an 8-fold increase, an average 8-fold increase in the last 10 years. Of course, the Artsakh Investment Fund continues to support its small to mid-sized businesses. The fund CEO said that more than 70 business entities have received assistance from the fund, totaling 1.8 million last year. So 1 year, again, it's sourced from the January newsletter of the Artsakh newsletter. So there are a lot of good things happening, and again, given the size of Artsakh, which is about, we talked about 70% of the Glenda's population of the county, I think this type of things will have a very big impact on people's life. We talked about some of these issues, the challenges, basically the diaspora Armenians, their fears when it comes to investing either in Armenia and Artsakh. And I'd like to again add that we need organizations like ADG to do their part in educating. I think it's through education that some of the fears would go away, but at the same time, education not in just communicating the success stories, but also educating the diasporans that we do need to work with folks like America Group, and so to make sure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed. Myself, 10, 12 years ago, I went to Wahid and I wanted to form my corporation in Armenia, and he helped form my software operation as a corporation in Armenia, and I always seek for assistance. I've gone to him for assistance, and I can personally say that he's one of those individuals that would never, ever turn you away. He'll always be there, he'll always give you his guidance, and he'll direct you to the right people and right individuals, so you can have access to individuals who really care and will provide you the information to do the right thing. So basically the opportunity here is to create a win-win situation and we have the personal return on investment, so we make an investment and we talked about the industries, but also the personal satisfaction, gratification that you actually have been able to make a difference in life of so many people. I mean, $1 million and $500,000 is one apartment building less, one house less or more, and so many thanks to God and our Armenians are hardworking people, and there are very, very many people that through hard work and they deserve they earn every penny of it, and they have it, and they could take some of it, and if they know that they can take it there, they can have a very big impact and balance their portfolio. Some helpful hints. Again, this is the part that I talk about my experience and what I think would help. Pick something you like to do and have expertise in. If you decide to go to Armenia some work, and it could be a business or it could be getting involved in a charitable organization, non-profit organization that does work in Armenia. Hire trusted advisors, consultants with expertise to help you. Research, cities operate differently in Armenia and Artsakh. This is not an issue of corruption. Basically, laws are different. They're even when it comes to real estate, some of the roads leading to your parcel of land may go to other properties, and the way in Armenia and Artsakh they sell those lands, they call those Hamaiki roads. Those are the roads those roads are sold with the deeds, and you need to address that at some point. So there are things like that. It's not corruption. It's nothing against diaspora Armenians. There are things that you need to know as you go to do business in Armenia, and you need to take those as part of your plans and make sure that you do what's needed. Define your scope, identify the needed resources, the funds needed, skills, time requirements, become familiar with the tax laws and the government laws, regulations. There are attorneys, again, the Armenian Bar Association I worked with myself in the past as well. Any issues, communicate. I think it's very important that we communicate any issues that come up with the officials, that we do not just assume that there's nothing we can do. And there was we talked about the corruption, and I want to basically add the same thing, that it's very easy in Armenia, perhaps more easier than other places, to take a shortcut, to not pay the tax, to not do this. Someone comes to you with this great project, listen, you need some saving, let's not pay the taxes, we'll pay cash, and you just need to be so careful, because it was stated earlier, once you get on that slippery road and you do 1, 2, 3 projects that way, then you're stuck, you're in it, and basically you're asking for trouble, and you get into a lot of situations that it would be very difficult to get out of. So myself, as Maya mentioned, I've had a software development office since 1999 there, and to date no one has come to us and asked us for any bribe or you need to close your shop. And at some point we had more employees and so forth. From day one, we were told you can pay half employees cash, half employees through the books, so you pay taxes, or pay half of their salaries cash, half of their. I said, listen, when we do work, we just basically pay everybody by the books and so forth. So the first few years when they come to inspect your book, they spend a few days and they don't find anything, and after that they don't show up. Similarly, the same thing with our projects in Shushi and so forth. It's very easy when you're putting an HVAC or an elevator, when you ask for a discount, they say, well, pay me cash, I'll give you 20% discount. I say, no, I want a discount. I want to pay the taxes. Taxes are what we need to pay. Those are so just be very careful. And as it was mentioned earlier today, if you do the right thing, if you don't have any dirt, usually the chances are you're not getting into situations to go to court, because people know that there's just nothing much they can do. The laws are pretty tight in that, again, don't bribe anybody. Find the right person. Do your due diligence, whether it's a hotel manager, whether it's an accountant, whether it's an attorney. Make sure that you have the right person. Trust and verify. I know a lot of people that have formed organizations with people that, because they've gone out to dinner twice and had good food, they formed partnerships, and then they wonder what happened. And initially, trust and verify from, they always said it's the right thing to do. Find the people, but trust them, have control over. It's very easy to do internet banking. You can have control over the money. You can make all the transfers and on yourself, at least until such a time that you start, establishing, the trust, and you can let some of those things go. But in general, people are nice. People are, just, it's like human beings. You just need to make sure that you set the right ground rules for what you want done, how you want it done. One of the other things that us Armenians in diaspora can do is just get involved in different nonprofit organizations. There are a lot of nonprofit organizations that you can get involved, and some of it would be fun, some of it would be volunteer work. Why I mentioned I'm part of Armenian Educational Foundation. I'm very proud that we've renovated over 170 schools in Armenia, Artsakh and Javakh, and every time I go to those schools and I see those kids' faces, the songs that they sing because they come back to work and the rooms are painted, it's just wonderful. It's a great experience. And we do smaller projects. We send school supplies over. Just a month ago, we sent school supplies to 800 kids in Burbank. It's one of the best things you can do. You walk into a school in a village somewhere, Karintak, and you see the backpack that you were in downtown LA going to and from the general store to general store trying to get another 75 cents discount on it. You see the kid walking by, and that makes your day. So that was good. We spent all that time. Same thing with computer education. We have a program that we bring teachers that teach computer in villages to nearby cities, spend 8 weeks training those teachers on computers, and give those teachers computers and send them back to their schools so now they can actually teach. Because we learned a long time ago that just giving a computer to someone that doesn't know how to use or doesn't have the right course curriculum to teach the students would not do anyone any good. So there are a lot of things that could be done. There are a lot of good organizations that you can get involved. If you are a part of a US-based organization, if you have a trip, make sure to include Armenia and Artsakh in your class. Trips are, so my kids went to Shamilian, and their trip to Armenia was one of the best memories they've had, and they always talk about it. So if you're part of a dance group, music group, just make sure you do take the kids here. They'll come back with the best memories, and you do a lot of good that as well. As I mentioned previously, we those guys that just come up with an idea and go to it. And this guy, we're doing a poetry festival this year, and thanks to Stefan and others, that's the nice thing about us Armenians. When you have a good project, you go to people, they always come and help you, they always give you advice and so forth. So we're doing computer training and other things. I went through my presentation very fast. I knew it was the end of the day and so forth. So in summary, government is very motivated to work with the investors. You have the right people to work with you. There are many opportunities. I can give this PowerPoint to Selak if he wants to post it to the ADG website. I can download it. But it's really a win-win-win situation in that the personal financial growth, you can make some money. The returns, as was mentioned, it's pretty high on some of the projects that you can establish. Whether it's jam factory, whether it's mixed nuts, and every time I go to Yerevan and I see how much a jar of jam is or not, you can really make money, to do some of these things in here. Quite expensive. And of course, the most important thing is the knowledge transfer to Armenians on the best practices. If you go there, you start your operation, whether it's a village that you're starting a sausage making factory or the dried fruit or something, it would have a very big impact in their life, because that's what you'll be communicating, some of the disciplines that through the many years of business we've learned to respect and to use as part of our days. We'll be able to communicate that. And finally, it's our land. Going back to Digra Meds, we have the Digra and that is being worked on, that will become one of the touristic attractions, and a lot of people lost their lives in making this a reality, and we should do our part to make sure that it becomes successful, and that people enjoy good standard living. And
thank you.
presenting this subject to us so nicely and clearly, and where I would have here and beyond that says everything. Takes the feeling, takes the concerns, takes everything that sometimes we all do feel. Now let me say that I am not from Los Angeles or anywhere else. I come from Sydney, Australia. I only got this message, this gathering, last night from my wife, who live in Sydney with my family. I've got a family here, a daughter and grandchildren. So I'm visiting for a few days. What I've seen here today is most encouraging, and I think that's the way I would like to see the professionals like yourselves taking, maybe hand in hand, without taking over, so that we can live more prosperously over there, without fear of taking things into the wrong hands. It's my concern too. I happen to be also the permanent, if there is such a permanent representative of Artsakh in Australia. Now, I also have to commend you very much, Baron Baghdasaryan, your Armenianism. You have certain feelings that we all have, even those bankers that they want to establish. They all have something beyond making money. Now, what you have taught us and told us today is most important, that it will go around to every Armenian. I have one thing in common. I also have, or we, 4 partners, have a hotel in Artsakh, in Stepanakert. Probably some of you heard about the Nairi International Resort Hotel. I'm also happy to see that there are new hotels like yours and others. That is most important. It makes me proud that these plans to bring more tourism, as we have discussed earlier, it's one of the important. We don't have so much gold. Gold will be depleted. We don't have oil, maybe copper, and etc. But we have our people. This is the capital. And how do we behave? How do we conduct to bring all energies, all important ideas to make that country survive and develop and prosper? Now, there is nothing more I can say about it. I have no questions, of course. Questions maybe all of you have the same: security, corruption, oligarchies. We all think about that, but it's not all that. Since we've been there in that hotel, this adventure, it's a bridge that we established, nothing for making money or personal gains or whatever. The idea was to build a bridge between the diaspora and Hayastan, Greater Hayastan, including Artsakh. And I think we succeeded in that. And I'm sure you have the same feeling, and these gentlemen have the same feeling, and all us present here. Let's continue on that road without diverting ourselves into unnecessarily wasting time, because the time is the essence, and we have to handle this very difficult area of our homeland. And I thank you again.
I think it is. I think, as you said, it's very, very important that we continue this, and it becomes a matter of both educating diaspora, both communicating through media the success stories. Make sure that media also does their part in communicating the success stories, communicating the positives, as well as when it comes to hear about an issue, to investigate the issue and get to the bottom of it, rather than just have one quick article that just it almost finds a gossip-like approach to it.
Thank you again, the gentleman from Australia and I. Barujan Iskenderi, and I didn't take the chance of Iskenderi and Barujan, I knew. All of us, whoever has gone to Artsakh in the early years, has stayed at this hotel, Hotel Nairi. We have something in common. When the students went to Armenia and Artsakh, they stayed in our hotel, Ani Hotel, in Yerevan, and then went to Nairi in Artsakh. Now, I'm happy to say that we have good competition, a lot of competition, bigger and better hotels, and it's some of them they're financing, and we're on the right track. I want to take the opportunity to welcome Mr. Grigor Ovanesyan, our Consul General, who had other engagements this morning, but he finally arrived. He's also a good driver to promoting investments in Armenia. Any other questions? Well,
I have one comment and then a question to Andrew and David. Mr. Baldassaryan's presentation was not only a breath of fresh air for me based on what he does, But it kind of ties back to what Ada was asking about all the stories we heard in the early 90s and 2000s, and we heard the word corruption so much. Now, when I listened to these stories more carefully, a lot of times, it wasn't corruption. It was mistakes made by people from the diaspora going there. And I was looking for certain keywords, and Mr. Baldassian's presentation touched upon all of them. Clearly, he's researched what he's invested in. I have the most sophisticated clients when they do business in America. They hire lawyers, they hire accountants, they do their homework. When they go to Armenia for the first time, like he again mentioned in his presentation, they have great dinners with random strangers. They fall in love with them, they wire the funds, they never go back and look, and then a few years later the money's gone. It's not a shocker, but I heard that aspect so much, and they always attributed it to corruption. And it wasn't. It was, they were behaving in a way that they never would here as professionals. And so when they approach things correctly and professionally, I think there is a lot of great stories. Get done right, you get the success and the happiness that Mr. Baldassare is giving. So that being said, organizations like America, if you are not a multinational corporation, not your business consultancy, if someone doesn't have the skill or ability like Mr. Baldassare to figure all this out himself, what kind of services do you provide for the diaspora in Armenia who wants to do something not necessarily great, large, but can you provide that level of research and advice that would give them that comfort in doing this right?
Well, as I touched earlier in my presentation, it is always an issue of how you approach it. Actually, most of the large projects that we have in Armenia, they start with napkin written pre-arrangements or concepts, etc. And yet, if we are successful in early stage engagements, we discuss, we enlighten, we propose a more professional approach. Many people, I think they're misinformed, or there's kind of misperception that things you can have arranged in any of the European countries or United States is something you wouldn't find in Armenia. This is probably an assumption based on which many mistakes are made in Armenia. As to services, it goes from starting from the market surveys, market reviews, feasibility studies, different sustainability reviews. It's the whole range, and usually before starting a project, especially cross-border, especially when it relates to sector, area, country where you have never done business in, you should definitely do some homework with professionals you trust. And in this regard, by the way, we are partnered with, in legal, just as an example. It's like the whole range, Baker McKinsey, Chadman Park, Allen & Overy, White & Case, all of them are our partners. So whenever you knock their doors, in London, for example, they will revert and divert to us. They will refer to us as their local partner in Armenia, or to any other, vendor. There are a dozen of such. This is not like, I'm not pitching, I'm not trying to sell ourselves. My point is that, and we always try to explain to our clients that the more careful and thorough review you do before starting any partnership, because we had examples that people were so emotionally attached to each other. We don't need any paper, I look to eyes, everything is, and these stories are numerous. And this goes, unfortunately, consistency and daily routine is something which, ruins all these emotional and inspirational, first stages. But as I said, tax, accounting, legal, business and strategic management advisory, HR-related issues. We help a lot of our clients to employ and form a key management team. This is probably one of the most important issues, because the idea, the concept, the sector, everything would be fine, the resources are there, but when the management is improper in many ways, then you have frustrations later on. I was just discussing with one of visitors here that it was really a nice energy project. Everything was really great, but because of the management, which was improper, it really didn't fly. So this could happen in Germany. This could happen in Austria. If you employ unprofessional, this is not a typical Armenian situation. And yet, you definitely need a professional to do, do not rely on emotions, feelings, senses. It's a more rational world, and it's always good to have friendship based on business than business based on friendship.
Yeah, it was mentioned earlier that it may take 50 years or if ever for tourism to be significant in Armenia. Do you think in Artsakh the situation may be a little better, where it's a smaller country and more spectacular in terms of the scenery and the tourism opportunity?
I think one of the challenges you have in Artsakh, again, is the limited resources that they have. I mean, this country is smaller. When you talk about the person, the Minister of Tourism also wears very many different hats. We've tried to do events, take part in Los Angeles Times Travel and Tourism Expo, and it just becomes difficult with the limited budgets of the country and limited resources available in the country to be able to put up a really nice show. Thanks to the efforts of Mr. Hovanesyan, he supported us a lot, and we've been able to we were able to attend twice in that event, and we had a lot of nice people stop by our booth, inquire about our website, about the country. Some had heard about our country, but again, when you compare to other countries that were there with the huge booths and so on. So, having said that, I think if we do it's a step that one follows the other. I think as we, especially like city of Shushi now, we used to have one hotel, now we have 3 hotels. Thanks to the Himnadram, now you have water in the city, the infrastructure is being built. So I think they are going to, it is going to start moving forward faster. I hope that Shushi's beauty and Artsakh's beauty, as I mentioned, there's a couple of well-respected sites are mentioned in Burbank as one of the places to go visit in 2000. So that must mean something. We need to do our part to make sure that that work gets on. And I think as the infrastructure also develops, as Tigrana gate and so forth, and become more known, it will hopefully have results.
Just to clarify my point, in absolute terms, it is still a small sector, and it's a small contributor to the GDP. The pace of growth and dynamics is impressive, and this will keep on because of the number of ratios are still unacceptably low. I mean, number of hotel beds, infrastructure issues. This will definitely develop. But if you look, 30% of our exports, Armenia and Artsakh together, mining, 30, and it's about 1.5 billion exports all in all. So it's about 500 million exports. It's only exports. I'm not actually going deep into jobs, taxes, and other chain effect. To reach 500 million in tourism, you have to keep mining at the same level, because mining also grows. Yeah. So in other words, you should always have it in priorities. You should always strive, and this will definitely be always in the agenda. but it would be very hard to play with, especially under these commodity prices that you have, and things will go worse and worse in this regard. I mean, prices will go up and up, because resources, especially copper, are very scarce, and if global economy recovers, prices will go up again. So this is kind of a we will have, I'm sure, within the next 5 years, triple more hotels infrastructure. Finally, our aviation will conceptually resolve. I think we will end up having open air, and then we will definitely have real competition in aviation, which will boost our tourism sector. So things will definitely be much more interesting than today. But I doubt that it could come close to mining, for example, if we try to have that comparison.
Any other questions?
Let me first start by saying, let me qualify my question. My name's Manoogian, and I've lived in Artsakh for many years. Now I'm back in the States for a while due to the economic crisis that we're facing. We've touched on corruption a few times here, and it seems to kind of iron itself out. As a person who has business investments in Artsakh, and some of them which are on hold right now for various reasons, there's in which David Sakis and I were talking about before the conference started, there's an indirect form of corruption which has affected most of my businesses, in fact all of my businesses. And it's this unfair business climate which individuals within the business sector take advantage of, which is they don't pay taxes, they may get materials for free or almost nothing, and then the competition that I have to deal with because I'm paying taxes and I have to pay full price for raw materials, for instance, I'm not competitive. I mean, I've lost business deals because of that, not necessarily within Artsakh. One of my larger ventures lost because of Hayastan, of an individual in Hayastan that has a very large, probably the richest person in Hayastan, who took a contract from me, which his sale price was less than my costs. In fact, much less than my costs. But my question is, since we're talking about Artsakh, recently Freedom House has rated Artsakh as not free. And this has happened. This is kind of shocking for me even, because I've always thought of Artsakh as being a little more free than Armenia. But in recent years, of course, in the last 2 years, I really haven't been there as I was in the past. My question is, because Freedom House measures different levels of freedom, the judicial system is influenced by the government, the rights of minorities are not always respected, and things of this nature. What guarantees do we have that because of that climate and that rating is not, I don't see it as a politicized rating so much as I see it as a reality, because I know what goes on in the country and I talk to a lot of people. What can we do to protect ourselves? And again, I want to also say that I haven't had a profit ever from any of my business ventures, and I didn't go in there as a benevolent thing. Maybe they were more experimental because it was such a fresh business environment for me, so I wasn't putting in quite as much financial resources into these, because I knew that for the most part they were going to fail. Not that I went in there wanting them to fail, but that's just how it turned out with everything that goes on. What can we do to protect ourselves, since we're being encouraged to invest in Artsakh, especially when an international organization rates this as not free, and that would also affect our businesses? What can you say about that?
At the end of the conference, it's like a question to elaborate for the next couple of hours, I believe. First of all, I'm not familiar with Freedom House report you're referring to, and it's really strange, especially about Artsakh. I really can't comment on how accurate it is and how relevant it is in terms of 2012 in Artsakh. But I can tell you from my perspective, as I said, during my presentation also, it is a young, developing country. We had 70 years of a completely different environment. And I would say, in a way, an environment which was very interestingly beneficial for Armenians, because we are much more, I would say, flexible and dynamic in the overall matrix to find, loopholes and to settle these issues. And I believe Armenia benefited from 70 years of Soviet system. And yet this was a system where decisions, conceptual, matrices were, made in Moscow, and the templates were sent, and you should play, within your playground. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, it is 20 years without a serious traditions of political, power, election culture, public institution. This is all new for the country. And of course, the starting point was very problematic because we had energy crisis, blockade, Artsakh war. So this all could not be without a reflection on what kind of perversive, system of values and environment formed, especially first 7 to 10 years. What happened later on is that over the last 5-6 years, we have positive dynamics. We see, and it is obvious. I would like to stress again, I have never been and will never be part of any political party. I have never participated in any elections. This is like a position of a very impartial, and I have received numerous offers and proposals to be engaged in different government positions and executive posts. I have never accepted any of them. And yet I have sufficient freedom to express what I believe in and what is right. And my position is obvious. Things are much more better today than 5 years ago. Things are much more better today than 2 years ago. Things definitely change. In terms of administrative resource and unfair competition, this is always a problem. Whatever the administration and governance incompetence is, it's not only with one competitor. If you're trying to use these problems that you have in the environment, you can benefit at some point, and then you can be hurted at later point. But all in all, what is happening now, and I've mentioned that, partially this is due to efforts of companies like we and companies which are really investing in Armenia, catalyzing change, spreading this and bringing this new culture and making this really happening in Armenia. And also, I mentioned that many businesses, they realize if they grow, if they have ambition to grow both wide and regionally, they have to implement different models. It is impossible to play with administrative resources and try to do, a so-called administrative resource. If you do business in Yerevan, Megri, Alaverdi, if you do business in Armenia, in Georgia, if you would like to attract funds from financial institution, if you'd like to get into partnerships, engaging your foreign partners in franchising or whatever. So these, I believe that this is kind of a vector. This is a direction which is irreversible. And what we have over the last at least several years is that, and one of the signs, by the way, is inflation. With monopoly oligarchic economy, you cannot have this inflation. You cannot control the inflation. And if there are economists in the auditorium, you will definitely understand that if there are 3 or 4 oligarchs playing with the sectors, you will definitely have a controlled pricing, and of course inflation at the end of the day as a problem. And this was in the agenda 2-3 years ago, and people realized, leaders of the country realized, that this is very dangerous way to organize and run the environment. And that's why all recent initiatives that we have are there to change this radically. David mentioned a couple of them. We have completely automated web-based interaction with tax administration in the country. We have eased all procedures for setting up businesses, for getting licenses. Like 1/3 of the licenses is completely waived from the environment. So things are definitely changing, and you could also see in indices that I've mentioned. Just like the Freedom House, there are several multinational IPOs and IDAs which do indices, and you could see the progress that we have over the last several years. All in all, I mean, my recommendation would be to be with professionals, to look around on the environment, and to see whether you can cope and you can tackle the risks that you set. Because while I do agree that there are problems in the country, I absolutely, categorically cannot accept that Artsakh is not a free country. This is, especially as compared to Armenia and a couple of other neighbors of Armenia. So this is really strange to hear, and I would definitely
much more information about that.
Yeah, I would definitely like to get the link to it.
One of the factors that the Freedom House takes into account is the rights of minorities. And if they probably assess the right of the Azeris in Artsakh, that will push down Artsakh's average. That's probably one of the
I read the
reasons.
comparison. That wasn't in there. It was more a lack of opposition, the 2010 elections, and governance and how it was set up. That was a big factor, because in 2010 there wasn't an opposition effectively, and that's a strong indicator that there is a problem, because the whole election was run by pro-government effectively, and
there are 3 parties. There are 3 parties in the Artsakh parliament, and it's. I think something is definitely wrong in what we discussed now.
Well, it's also beyond. There's a lot of factors. There's a whole list of very specifics, and this is probably not the conference for that, obviously, because like you said, this could take a couple hours. But I will share with you the link and all that stuff.
Yeah, I would love to. And then once again, this is I'm not a government official, and I don't sell a clean governance idea or concept. But I'm dead sure that Artsakh is more free than Armenia. Whatever you touch.
Any other questions? So, we can officially wrap up this conference. I would like to thank ADG again for organizing this in a very, very short time. I would like to thank the panelists, especially those who have come from far away. Thank you for a great representation. You already have a footstep in the US, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing you a lot more often. And besides the business that you will be doing, I think such conferences will really enlighten the community that means well, that wants to do as much as possible for Armenia and Artsakh. And the presence of professionals like you in the city on a regular and organized way will again bridge the gap and help those who intend to do well to actually do well. Thank you very much for coming, and have a wonderful afternoon.